So in this segment, this week is going to be dominated by talks of the banks. There's a lot of chatter going on, so we're going to do our best to cover it as much as possible. Because as much as people and I dislike the banks and the culture around banking, agreed. They do pay a lot in taxes in the UK, despite the fact that should probably pay more. But this is from the boss of JP Morgan saying leaving the EU cannot possibly be good for the United Kingdom's GDP, says investment banking boss. So just hold on a second. I'm going to call Michael Gove and tell him we have a case of Project Fear here. Hello, Michael. This guy, what's this guy's name? Jamie Diamond. He's saying that Brexit's going to be bad for the UK's GDP. And I was just wondering, maybe you need to have a word with him because that's Project Fear, isn't it, mate? I heard that's Project Fear. I could be wrong. But Michael, maybe you should have a word with the guy. Michael, put the powder down. Have a word with this man. All right. So we go on. JP Morgan may one day move all of its EU-focused business out of London and into the EU. The investment bank's boss has said. So it's possible there's some posturing here from JP Morgan to say that fix up or we're leaving. That's very possible, or it could be the case that this man is, laying it out there clearly that the JP Morgan may leave because of Brexit and the fact that, the UK does not look like it's getting equivalency with the EU, especially since banks were mainly financial services were ignored by the deal that Boris Johnson struck with the EU, the trade and cooperation agreement. So JP Morgan, so the boss, Jamie Dimon, said this move is many years out, but warned that London will need to adapt and reinvent itself after Brexit, saying that there are few winners are likely to emerge. I would argue that Paris, Frankfurt and Amsterdam are the winners from the UK's decision to leave the EU. And as he mentions there, he mentions Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, Dublin. They're the winners there, which will, it's going to fragment, the financial services across multiple countries. And one of the main benefits of, kind of the City of London was that it was all in one place, and so by fragmenting it does impact it, which does mean that some of the services may leave to go to somewhere like New York, which also has equivalency with the EU as well. But whatever happens, it's still a loss for the UK. So in his annual letter to shareholders, Mr. Dimon wrote, in the short run, i.e. the next few years, this cannot possibly be a positive for the United Kingdom's GDP. The effect after that will be completely based upon whether the United Kingdom has a comprehensive and well-executed strategic plan that is acceptable to Europe. So what he's saying is, come up with something good, try and get equivalency from Europe, and we go from there. The thing is, that's not going to happen. The UK definitely wants equivalency from Europe, from the EU, but doesn't want to look like it wants it, if that makes sense, because we don't want to look like we're adhering to EU rules, because otherwise what was the point of Brexit then? What was the point of Brexit if we're adhering to EU rules, especially now since we cannot even determine, we have no impact on the EU's rules compared to what we had before. So he added, Brexit was accomplished. I would argue that it's not quite over yet, but many issues still need to be negotiated, and in those negotiations Europe has had and will continue to have the upper hand. Again, Michael, you need to speak to this gentleman here because he's been reading the Project Fear too much, Michael. He's been reading too much Project Fear, and it's not good for him, is it? I thought, clearly, he doesn't believe in Britain as much as you do, Michael and Boris. You need to speak with this gentleman. Brexit, we mentioned that. However, EU officials have signalled that they are in no rush to conclude an agreement. In the meantime, European financial hubs have now been hoovering up business that had London dominated until now. JP Morgan employs around 19,000 people in the UK, including 12,000 in London, which may not sound like a lot in the grand scheme of, the population of London or the UK, but most of these would be good paying jobs that pay a lot of tax and also contribute a lot to a local economy. Many of those have to move at some point, Mr. Dimon wrote. So clearly he's saying that, a lot of these people are going. because the UK won't have access to the EU. We won't have equivalency to the EU. He goes, we may reach a tipping point many years out when it may make sense to move all functions that service Europe out of the UK and into continental Europe, he wrote. Paris, Frankfurt, Dublin, and Amsterdam were likely to grow in importance. So, as fragmented as things are going to be, it won't be all located in one place like it is in the city of London. However, it would, I would assume that he's thinking that it's better off moving services out of the country quickly, and that's eventually going to happen. And say he could determine where, JP Morgan could play a large part in which one of these cities becomes the next financial hub of Europe. He said London was a magnificent place to do business and had the opportunity to adapt and reinvent itself, but officials have to act quickly. And the thing is, the question we need to ask ourselves is, are people like Boris Johnson going to do that? Do they have any strategy in mind? I think Sunak was a former banker, but the thing is, he's involved in playing in politics a lot. So are these people going to do what's right for the City of London and look to get equivalency from the EU, or are they going to mess around and find out? Because I think it's the latter. He says innovation is the key to preparing for doing the business of tomorrow versus relying on shifting ways of the past. He said before the 2016 referendum that he would move around 4,000 jobs, which hasn't quite happened just yet. We see from this other article from the Scottish Financial News, which says that, the head of JP Morgan warns that Europe is seeking to poach business from London. He says that Brexit cannot possibly boost the UK economy. He says Brexit was accomplished, but many issues still need to be negotiated. In the short run, he says it can't be great, stuff we've mentioned. At the moment, the bank later scaled back these estimates to no more than 500 to 1,000 jobs leaving the UK, not the 4,000 he estimated in 2016, but we don't actually know what the UK's financial position is going to be when it comes to equivalency just yet. So he could be waiting, or he could have overestimated the impact for whatever reason. Mr. Diamond's comments come as the Bank of England seeks to prevent an EU power grab. In February, Andrew Bailey, the ardent Brexiteer, warned that there were signs the EU powers could be planning to cut the UK off from itself. And the thing is, Andrew Bailey, who wanted Brexit, gave the EU this power over the UK. So well done, Andrew Bailey. Congratulations. Mark Carney, I miss you, fam, because you're not as stupid as this man, Andrew Bailey. In his letter, Diamond said, it is clear that over time European politicians and regulators will make many understandable demands to move functions into European jurisdictions. And that's something we've talked about in the video where we cited from the Financial Times, that when it comes to setting up subsidiaries or lending schemes or whatever within the EU, they're saying that it's more than just a brass name that you need or a brass plate that you need. You're going to have to put a lot of money into your investments to make sure you don't just, fail at an investment thing, liquidate and come back. You need to put major money and staff into whatever things you set up within the EU. Because of this, and because of the strong European efforts to compete with London, Paris, Frankfurt, Dublin and Amsterdam will grow in importance. JP Morgan has hired hundreds of British workers in the past few months as it seeks to take on the likes of Monzo by targeting UK households with its own online bank later this year. And that's something Brexiteers have been touting as a success. But this is to do more with technology rather than with banking. Diamond said we may reach a tipping point many years out. And so then, this office thing that they're setting up within, I think is Birmingham, may move to, another place within the EU, once the equivalency thing doesn't happen. And once the technology is built here, they may just keep just a subsidiary within the UK to run their, Monzo competitor and look to move more functions to the EU. Diamond says London has the chance to reinvent itself, particularly as the digital landscape continues to revolutionise financial services. The question is, can the City of London and the UK do that? We've seen they call it fintech, financial technology, I think it means, sort of growing within the UK, but we have seen the collapse of a fintech firm recently with Greensill and the whole David Cameron fiasco, which we're going to be talking about more as the week kind of progresses. But the question is, are the British government going to be able to seize upon that, given that we have Bojo the Wonder Clown in charge? That's up to the British government and the City of London. So according to EY, who are a big consultancy firm, only 7,600 financial service jobs have moved so far out of the UK due to Brexit, a tiny proportion of the UK's financial sector and less than previously predicted. However, Xavier Rowlett, the former boss of the London Stock Exchange, said he still believes research which it commissioned in 2016 that suggested 232,000 jobs could go. And the question is, are we going to get equivalency with the EU? And also the fact that, some of these jobs may stay because of these financial firms still wanting a foothold within the City of London. But the question is, how appealing is London going to look to people from around the world? People in other financial centres. People in Japan, in Switzerland, in Singapore, in the US. How tempting is the UK going to look, especially if you set up shop within the UK, and then to move assets into the EU, you have to notify the Bank of England and seek their permission before you can do that, because that looks like a recent rule change that's going to happen, like we mentioned before in the video with the Financial Times. Even if you see London as appealing, do you want your money to get tied up by the Bank of England, who are saying you need to seek permission before moving assets? Or you can be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move to, say, Dublin, a low tax place, or Amsterdam, another low tax place. You have many options on the table now as the City of London sort of falls out of relevancy, because the city needs to re-identify what it is about. And technology of the future, online banking is going to take hold, especially as more and more banks close, their kind of high street banks, or whatever you call it, where you can go in there, physical banks, I guess. As that happens more and more, online banking will take hold. Even parents and whatever older people, boomers, have to start learning about online banking, because this is the future, and it's way easier to do than going into the bank to do a transfer. However, London needs to appeal more to these big fintech firms in order to get them into the UK. And the question is, how do you do that? Do you do that through deregulation and tax cuts? We know that the UK is looking at a slight increase on corporation tax, so I wonder how appealing the UK is going to look at from that regard, despite the fact that we have very low corporation tax anyways. But, I'm at risk at rambling on more, talking about more possible things that could happen. And I think I've spoken enough for this video. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.